A lot of people still seem to think that YouTube is just young people with their glowing elastic skin and who have all their hair, none of which is gray yet. That starting YouTube after 40 means you have to spend the next 10 years doing base jumps or sawing tables in half with a plastic knife or living for 30 days on avocado oil and wheatgrass before anyone's going to actually watch you. So how do you compete with those younger creators? Well, I think it's simpler than you might think. I'll give you a really big hint. In our middle years, we have decades of mistakes and misery that we like to avoid and messy stories that we can share. Now, that doesn't mean that people of every age can't add value, but over the hill does not mean out to pasture. If it's your first time here, I'm Mickey Mullen. I talk about video, tech hacks, and life. I'm 51 years old as I record this, and I have 4 kids. A year and a half ago, I got laid off from a corporate job, and I decided I was going to be an entrepreneur. If you think you've missed the boat on creating content, well, let me tell you, you haven't. It's the same with YouTube as with nearly everything else. You start getting better as soon as you start. I've spent 29 years in technology, from running my own startups to working at Microsoft, from managing people to computer programming to teaching. I've lived just about everywhere in the U.S., from rural America, both coasts, the South, the North. Now I live in New Hampshire because it's the freest place in the world. How can you leverage that kind of experience? And well, I think the question is, how can you not? The things that kept holding me back, and maybe they're holding you back too, well, they're the things that make us and me and you unique. No matter how old someone is, what sets them apart is their individual experience. That's your advantage. You have something to say, not theory or spitballing, but true lived wisdom that's in your bones and aches when it's going to rain. Raising a family, navigating a recession, weathering life's trials, how to be the pillar that everyone else leans on when times are rough. If I make a video about choosing a life path, I'm not guessing. I know the difference between being a fast food cook or a personnel manager, running a startup, or being a cog in a big corporate machine. And that's what you bring, the true-to-life knowledge, the stories that you're a part of. And think back, what experiences make the best stories? I bet it's not where everything went right. It's the manure hitting the turbine situations that make for the best lessons and the stories you'd like to tell around a campfire. You know what works? Because you've probably done exactly what doesn't work, and you can tell people why it didn't work. Now, why does that make those kinds of stories, so compelling? Because those things mean that you've already survived far worse than, for example, a camera lens. You've gone through performance reviews, breaking irreplaceable equipment, moving to a new town, having kids, sleeping through an incredibly important interview. I have had hundreds of great presentations in front of a room full of students or live audiences. And you know what stands out in my memory? 24 years old, standing in front of a group of my colleagues at a nonprofit to teach them about how to create reports, and completely, absolutely dying so badly that one of them stood up and called the whole thing to a halt because it was such a waste of everyone's time. That catastrophe did more good for me than all the ones that were smooth and successful. And it's been a huge factor in why the rest of the presentations that I did went as well as they did, because I never, ever wanted to experience that kind of humiliation again. Don't let this camera thing get you down or hold you up. You've been through worse, I'm sure of it, and the best way to get over it is to go through it. Set up your camera, which can be your phone. Look right at it, and here's the magic. Press record. When the red light's blinking, it feels different. That's not something you get used to by thinking about it. You gotta do it. And that feeling, that realness, that means you have to actually publish it too. If you know other people are gonna see it, it hits differently. I can rehearse half a dozen times out loud, but when I hit record, it's brand new. I bet there's a bigger double-edged fear than even the dreaded camera holding you back. There's a new old saying on the internet: nobody cares. That's both liberating and debilitating. I'll explain. First, the liberation. Fear of what your friends, your family, your coworkers might think if they saw what you created. I mean, that's a real fear, but the fact is, most of them will probably never know. And even if they do, the most likely reaction is going to be, oh, good for you. I hope that works out. Now the downside. Why would I pour my heart and soul out into cyberspace if no one cares? A lot of us struggle with feeling relevant. We're not up on the latest memes or the turns of phrase or the current thing. Why would I bother sharing my stories when everyone's talking about Celebrity Miss Pretty Pants? Thing is, that's exactly why it's so important to share. People are inundated with zip-bang flashes dozens or hundreds of times a day. They need balance. Plus, people a little bit older are one of the fastest growing groups on YouTube. They want to feel connected to people who have lived, people like me and you. That leads me to what's probably the most important advantage of all. There's a massive hole in the market that only you can fill. The internet is drowning in advice for people to follow their dreams. How? Is what you wanted at 20 or 25 the same as what you want at 40 or at 50, 60? Can you tell a kid why a luxury German sedan or an Italian sports car just don't bring about happiness all by themselves? Can you explain to a new mom why her body just won't seem to snap back no matter what she does? Can you be there for a guy with 3 kids and a mortgage who just found out he's jobless for Christmas? Your voice is more important than you might realize. Do you remember those messy stories and their little gems of wisdom? They have impact because they're real. People are yearning for connection and authenticity. Career transition advice from someone who's transitioned careers. Personal development from someone who's gone through real challenges, setbacks, and abject failures and personally developed, not just reframed advice from excellent books. When you talk about resilience, you're carrying the memories and emotional scars from things like rushing your kid to the ER with a 104-degree temperature, from making yourself pick up the phone when you know it's another creditor, when you've had to sit someone down that you love and tell them that their drinking is getting to be too much, or maybe been the one sat down. You're not reviewing a book. You're sharing a life. People love that. They need it. That's why your late start is probably the perfect time. Speaking of time, one of the biggest differences between my 20s and my 50s is boredom. In my 20s, I would start entirely new hobbies to keep from going insane from having nothing to do. Now, I don't think I've been bored in 3 or 4 U.S. presidencies. You don't have unlimited time anymore. Kids, work, community responsibilities, home repairs. Maybe you have aging parents. Life gets full. I have 2 adult daughters from my first marriage, plus 2 young boys, a 4-year-old who's very energetic and an 8-year-old who's autistic. My wife loves to prod me that there's a novel that I haven't finished that she wants to read the end of. These are just some of the things that demand my time, but they aren't impediments. They're the spice that make life beautiful. They force me to think strategically instead of acting haphazardly. You don't need to become Mr. Beast to build something sustainable that adds value. Fitting it into your very real life is something you've done many times if it was something that you thought was important to you. This could be another one of those things. Like Woody Allen said, just keep showing up. It gets easier as you get better. Be consistent and keep learning. Share the lessons that you've learned and the wisdom you've earned. But there's one more reason why your age makes creating on YouTube the best idea you've heard today. Build your house on the granite bedrock of your decades of experience. Real-world problems that you've solved. Honest first-hand stories of what shapes a life. Younger creatives have energy and passion and time. That's their advantage. We of a certain age have perspective, credibility, authoritativeness, expertise. If you're over 40 and thinking about creating content, do it. Stop treating your years like baggage and start thinking of your life as the priceless experience that it is. I don't have it all figured out. I just share what I've learned so far. And that's the benefit of YouTube to you. Our thoughts and our experiences, they spin around our head like whirling dervishes until we write them down or speak them aloud. This is a fantastic place, one of the best, to get what's spinning around in your head out here into clear, focused stories that no one else can tell. If you found this interesting, I'd appreciate a like and a subscribe because I have more to say. And I bet you do too.